to Convo Fango. Today we are joined by writer, director Kate Dolan and star of You Are Not My Mother, Hazel Doupe. Yay! Welcome, guys.
Woo!
Yay!
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I'm so excited to get to chat with you guys about this one.
Cool. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
of
exciting.
course.
So, Kate, this is your feature directorial debut, right?
Yes, yeah, first feature. So yeah, this is my first time.
Yeah, you went hard with this one though. Like this is like I'm like this is the first one. I had to like I was like double checking that because I'm watching that and I was like, holy shit! Like this is her like first feature, really? Like
Yeah, somebody recently was like, "Yeah, you really took a brave choice making this your first film," and I was like, "Oh, is that? I never thought about it like that before." Yeah.
yeah, that is. But a brave choice. It is, but also like I'm gonna say a brave choice, but it's also it was fantastic because like when people say something is like interesting and you're like I could take that like one of like 10 ways. Like which way do you mean that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I mean it in the most complimentary fashion. This movie kicks ass is what I mean when I say it.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So you guys want to tell us a little bit about what this movie is about?
Um, yeah, sure, I can do that. So it's a story about a teenage girl who lives with her mother and her grandmother, and her mother is suffering with her mental health, but kind of just stays in her room all the time. And then uh, early on in the film, she goes missing, and then the family sort of fear the worst in that situation because she's been suffering, and then she returns a day later, and her behavior becomes increasingly strange and unusual. And the teenage protagonist, Shar, who's played by Hazel, starts to unearth some family secrets that shed light on the situation. And it's set during the week of Halloween in Ireland, and it's inspired by Irish folklore and myth and legend. And yeah, it's a wild ride.
It is definitely a wild ride. Hazel, what did you feel like when you read the script? Like what stood out to you and made you think like that you want to do this project?
I was actually talking about this to somebody yesterday. Yeah, the first time I read the script, I was in the west of Ireland, which is like kind of it's very visceral surroundings and setting. So I was in a house and I was house sitting for somebody, and it was the middle of the night, and I was like, I had the music on, accompanying the script, and it was all horror music, and it was really cool. And yeah, it was really, really cool to read an Irish script that was like completely embedded in like Celtic and like folklore and all that kind of mythology, and that wasn't relying on jump scares.
Hmm.
So yeah, as soon as I finished reading it, I was like, "This has got to be mine."
Yeah.
Somewhere I've got to be in this somewhere. Yeah, very cool.
I love that. I love all of the mythology and the lore that's in here embedded within it. And I was actually wondering like is that something that was like well known to you guys and is prevalent or did you have to do some like deep digging for that or is that just kind of like that's commonplace and like you guys know this lore?
For me anyway, I definitely like knew a lot of it. I feel like I had two grandmothers that were very witchy.
Mm.
So they used to kind of be telling me these stories. But I think as well, like, in school, you're often told some of these kind of stories as well about people being led away to the other world, and then kind of classic myths and legends of Ireland that you learn, I think, in primary school when you're kind of quite young.
Mhm.
But then when I was writing this script, I did a bit more of a deep dive into particularly kind of changelings, and it's tricky with Irish folklore because actually it's kind of hard to find a lot of written sources on it, because traditionally in Ireland, like there's a real storytelling tradition, so it's like usually passed on verbally, so there's not actually massive amount like of written stories. So it was kind of, yeah, I had to do a lot of digging on kind of finding specifics. But I think it's always been something that, yeah, definitely has interested me.
I love that so much. You guys just have a lot of cool lore and mythology, like the changelings, and you guys have like fairies and all this stuff. I'm like it's such a rich like dive that you have like at your disposal to use, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, this
Um,
is like there's layers to this kind of horror because it's like yeah, you're dealing with like, oh, are we dealing with changelings and things of that nature and witchy stuff and supernatural? But then there's also like this really very tragic and like this fearful thing of like I think also watching it as an adult it hits differently because I'm watching this teenager like this kid, so you automatically feel like protective of a child essentially, right? Dealing with mental illness with her mother, and it's like kind of that weird thing of like a parent is supposed to protect the child, but in this instance, it's more of like this child is having to protect the mother, or maybe possibly need protection from the mother. So it's like this heartbreaking, also kind of level of fear layered in there as well.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that was like a real core. Well, that's where the story art
Mm-hmm.
originated from. Was like I wanted to dive into Irish folklore, but really for me, I wanted to tell a story that captured that kind of family environment where you're a teenager and you, as you say, you're kind of don't feel safe in your own home, or you don't
Mm-hmm.
feel cared for or protected, and you have to be a caretaker, or you have to kind of step up when you're maybe a bit too young to do that and you don't really know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So those were all like the kind of, the where the story originated from, was capturing that kind of feeling, which is very scary, but then adding in kind of this fantastical element to it,
Right.
like amp up that fear, because a drama film about that kind of story could be almost too confronting, but when you have it like with magic and surreal supernatural elements, it kind of is a more palatable way almost to tell that story.
It really is. It makes it feel more okay, for lack of a better term. And also I
Yeah.
feel like when you're putting something on it like it's like it's a changeling or it's like some witchy shit or something, then it's like, okay, then maybe I have ways to defeat this. Like maybe Char has a chance at like finding ways to defeat this kind of thing and like slay these demons, and that's not necessarily true if you're translating that to just like a drama version of this story.
Yes, yeah, definitely.
They made us feel like shit, but you let us have some fun with it too, you know?
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect.
You don't come away at the end like you're just like, fuck, that was dark, and I just need to go just like sit and like process for a minute. So, what was your
Mm.
inspiration for this?
Well, yeah, just kind of like, the Irish folk stories. There was particularly one about a woman called Bridget Cleary in 1895, and her husband thought she was a changeling, and he kind of kept her captive in their house for a week, I think, and then he just kind of lost it, and he murdered her by burning her in their fireplace. And then he was arrested and put in prison. But I just found that story to be really intriguing because, it was like, what's going on behind those doors?
Mm-hmm.
Like what's actually going on with him? What's actually going on with her? What caused that to happen? What was the lead up to that situation happening? And did he really believe that? Or like what, and all those questions I had about that story, just kind of like taking that kind of story and like the ambiguity of like what's really going on in a family, and like what does that kind of manifest as, and so that was like a jumping off point. And then obviously, yeah, as I said, the kind of, I wanted to tell that kind of story about it, someone who's coming of age who is in a family environment that they, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's it's very difficult to know where they stand, or being a caretaker, but also kind of being afraid of people in your family, and then that kind of feeling. So just, so yeah, kind of those two elements, the folklore elements, and then that they just started to complement each other really well as I was developing the idea, and then it just felt like it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah. Nice. Hazel, did you know that story before? That story of Bridget? Like, is that something that was also like, oh yeah, we all know about that, or no?
No, that wasn't something I knew until Kate told me. Yeah, when Kate was giving me a bit of background about changeling, she told me that story, and it really ruffled my feathers.
Yeah,
It was great.
yeah. That's disturbing, right?
Yeah,
But also,
yeah.
it's like that thing of like unreliable narrators. But in this story, you've got like three generations, and you're like, okay, I think I know what's going on. You're like, but wait, actually, I don't know who's reliable. Wait, is anybody reliable here? Because you're like trying to get your footing, and then I guess it's kind of like Shar can't get her footing either. So you're kind of right there with her of like, what's real, what's not, who's the person that actually is like thinking about things that are not happening, or like maybe, who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, for lack of a better term. But yeah. So
Yeah.
unsettling all the way through.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's like, something we wanted to do is like very much put you in Char's shoes. So that kind of, yeah, capturing, I suppose, that feeling of like, where do I stand with these family members and who can I kind of feel safe with? And
Hmm.
it, yeah, just trying to capture that. But yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, thanks for unsettling me as well.
Yeah.
What was the most fun part about this for you guys, about telling this story and bringing this to life?
I mean, for me, it's probably like making it with a whole bunch of like young people
Hmm.
who were like at the beginning of their career, who had so much to offer, and especially like just being on an Irish set in general is like the most fun ever. And when you mix that with people who are like super, super talented and super humble, and like just at the start of their career where they're like chomping at the bit, and like loads of women, that was so good.
Hmm.
um, yeah, a
Yeah.
lot of fun days with continuity.
Oh yeah, that was funny. Yeah, we like, I think I'll just reiterate what, yeah, Hazel said there. Like I think it was because it was kind of this micro budget scheme that we made the film on with Screen Ireland. Like a lot of that idea behind it was to for people to upskill and kind of get to the next level of their career. So like as Hazel said, it was a lot of young people, a lot of young women, and people who hadn't really done a feature film before. So it meant that nobody ever came to set like phoning it in. Everyone was really passionate and really dedicated and really kind of giving it everything they could. And like the cast as well, like I think we just got so lucky with all the cast were just like such down to earth people who, like, it was a micro budget feature. So like you don't have like trailers to be hanging around and you're standing in like a cold house with all the windows open because of the COVID protocols and stuff like that. So it's like, you kind of, there was no divas around. Everyone was kind of just like in it to kind of, be a team and make the film. And I think that like it was a lovely environment to be on set. Like it was just like really fun and felt very collaborative, which was really nice.
This is a
Yeah,
stellar cast. Like this cast,
yeah.
like just like fucking just like knocks it out of the park. Also, the bullying scenes, I was like very disturbed by that because I'm like, that's not like normal. Like bullies suck across the board in general, but these were like bullies taking it to another level. I was like, these are like homicidal, psychotic bullies. Like you could
Yeah.
really do some damage with your style of bullying.
Yeah, you need to come to like North Dublin to be accosted by a group of teenagers. You'll see they're very real. Yeah.
My only hope would be that I could maybe outrun them, and I probably wouldn't be able to. I'd be fucked. I'd just be like crying and like trying to like call you guys up and be like, "Hey, can you come help me? Because these crazy Irish teens are after me."
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Man. Is there anything else you guys would like to share with us about the process?
yeah.
Yeah, I just want to say like, because Carolyn was like as
Yeah.
big a part of this film as I was, and she's not here obviously, but like she was unbelievable. She was like the greatest joy to work alongside, and the three of us, myself and Kate and Carolyn, were the same unit the whole time, cracking jokes and like, yeah, giving each other hope. Like it was such a beautiful journey to go on with Carolyn, and she's
Yeah.
an incredible woman and actor. Yeah.
Yeah, I think like she as well, like a lot of people since the film's come out like often reference the dance scene that she does in the middle of
Hmm.
the film. Um and I like always just say to people like that was like, I like that dance is all coming from her. It's not me choreographing her at all. She like, I gave her rough ideas of where in the room roughly she needed to be and like guided her for blocking just for the camera. But like that performance like just makes that scene, and that was all coming from her. Like she just kind of created that um almost completely on her own with help, like with the music from the composer as well. But it was just like it's a real standout scene. I feel like people really always mention it and always like really respond to it. So I think like she deserves like a lot of kudos for that because she's like really kind of brought that to life.
Yes, nice. It kind of embodies the performance and just like that character as a whole for the story, I feel like, because there's like she's really amazing at doing this duality of like this gentleness, and then you have this empathy, and you're like, oh well, and then this like ferocity, and it just switches, and it's like terrifying because it goes from one extreme to the other in just like a snap, and that's like so scary. I also think like as a mama's girl, like that's such a terrifying thing for me because I'm like, oh, my mom, and then like the concept of like, oh, but what if your mom was like a monster or something? Like that's so scary.
Yes, yeah, definitely. I think yeah, Carolyn did an amazing job of like embodying that idea and the ambiguity of like the mental illness versus
Mm-hmm.
like this kind of otherworldly creature. And I think, that was a really difficult line to tread and like capture both feelings when you're kind
Mm-hmm.
of doing those kinds of scenes. And yeah, I think she really got it. Like it was just like um yeah, amazing to work with her. And I think everyone should employ her and put her in the movie.
All right. Yeah, she very much walks this like very like this tightrope almost. So you're never like, okay, for sure it's this, or oh no, for sure it's this. You're like, it's ambiguous the whole way through to where it's like kind of like you're like never quite sure. Again, like you can't ever get your footing with this, and you're like, I'm not quite sure. I think I know. So, and that's scary. That the fear of the unknown and the whole thing is kind of you feel like, well, I don't really know what's happening here, and that's extra scary.
Yes, yeah. Well, I think that's like the spirit of Irish folklore as well. Like when I was reading and researching, that's kind of the appeal of the folklore to me. Like it is so unknowable.
Hmm.
And like like when I was trying to find descriptions of changing so that I could kind of get a sense of, how to design that or like how to do the makeup in the later parts of the film. But there's no kind of descriptors. It's just like a thing appeared in the middle of the road and then they were dragged to their doom and you're like, what did it look like though? So I think like trying to capture that unknowability of like Irish folklore within the film was like a thing that I was trying to do as well to kind of pay homage to that spirit.
Yeah. Well, the look that you went with, I will say, like I have been thinking about it. Like it just randomly pops into my head at times. So I'll probably be haunted by it, maybe
No,
forever. So
Great. I love that. That's brilliant.
being like, oh my god, I'm seeing this like mother everywhere. Their nightmares in their kitchen, like when it's dark. Yeah.
Nice.
amazing. You also did a really awesome short film, Cat Calls, that I'm a fan
Yeah.
of as well. So everyone check that out. And that's creepy but like very fun as well, and it has like the best kind of like comeuppance that we like love to root for and we love to see in movies. So
Yeah. Yeah. It's like sexual predator gets his just desserts served to him. And it's yeah, more camp and fun. It's like totally quite different than You're Not My Mother.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like elements of it in there, you know what I mean? There's
Yeah,
some
yeah.
fun stuff in You're Not My Mother. It's like very, very dark subject matter, but you like you fun it up also with like scary effects and things.
Yes, yeah, yeah, definitely.
But definitely a strong woman is a theme in your work. I feel so. Love that.
Yes, yes, yes. Inspired by many strong women in my life who are amazing. So
Hell yeah. We are here for that 100%. All
awesome.
right, guys. Anything else before we go?
I don't think so. Thank you for having us, and so nice to talk to you about this film. And thank you for your kind words about it. It's really, really nice to hear.
Yeah, I always like to like when something, fucks me up. I love to get to talk to the people that fucked me up. Be like, "Hey, you ruined my night. Thank you so much."
Great, love to hear that. Love it.
It's like it's the highest compliment to you guys, and I'm like,
Yes,
I'm
yeah,
so lucky that I get to tell you that like face to face, sort of screen to screen.
absolutely, absolutely. I love that.
You Are Not My Mother is now in theaters and on demand. Check it out.